And there is a lot today that I have planned. I hope we'll be able to complete everything. So with that, we'll get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vradavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini. Namostu te vyasa vishala buddhe Ullara vindayata patra netra Yena tvaya bharata taila purnaha Prajvalito jnanamayah pradipaha Prapanna parijataya Totra vetraika panaye Jnanamudraya krishnaya Geetam Bridatuhe Namaha. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So today's I put an agenda together so that it'll be easy to follow. We are on the second chapter, and we will start with the very last shloka explanation. I think I rushed through a little bit last time, so we will complete that. And along with this, we will do a brief summary of the second chapter. I thought we could go through each shloka and just do a very brief summary of it. After that, we will chant the whole second chapter. And then we will end the second chapter with the last shloka, which is Om Tat Sat, that shloka. And then if there's any questions, we can answer that. And if at all we have time after that, we can even start the third chapter. So this is what I have planned for today. We will not necessarily do reflection time today because I think we will need the time to complete this great chapter here today. Is this okay with everyone, or do people prefer the chanting and the summary to go together? What do you think? Okay, so I'm assuming that you're okay with just doing a summary and then chanting the whole chapter together. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the very last shloka of the 72nd of the second chapter, which is the 72nd shloka. This basically talks about the glory of the whole knowledge, which is encompassed in Bhagavad Gita. As you know, the second chapter is one of the most complex chapters, the largest chapter, the most difficult chapter, but it is also a summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. It has all the contents, which finally leads to this glory of this knowledge. And what is that which promises us? It is Brahma Nirvanam Adhigacchati, which is we have an opportunity to attain Nirvana, Moksha, that Brahma Padam. So that is the phalam, or the result that is promised to us at the end of second chapter. So if we have attained that knowledge even at the end of second chapter, there is no need to go through the other rest of the Bhagavad Gita. But if we want more clarification and more elaboration and also focus on particular chapters, then we go to the other chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And I have prepared quite a few things today as far as the concepts of Gita, of the second chapter, and then also how the shlokas from this chapter is reflected in other chapters. So there is a lot we will go through also. But in this glory which is promised to us is that at the end of this knowledge, if we spend the time to reflect, meditate upon this shloka, upon this second chapter, upon Bhagavad Gita, we will reach that state of Brahma Nirvanam, which is the absolute perfection state. So how do we define that perfection state? That perfection state is where I have absolutely no confusion. Very, very simply put, is that perfection state is a state where I have no confusion in our mind. As we have always talked about from the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna represents us in a way that we are many times, we go through many issues in life, the ups and downs, everything, only because we are confused as to what path to take, what decision to make. We experience this ups and downs even in simple things. So what to talk of the bigger things, which is really to understand God, to be with God, to understand my own self. So with this knowledge promises that once I get this Bhagavad Gita knowledge, I am going to be in a state of absolute calmness. That calm state, which is above all confusion. So that is the thing. So this shloka is Esha Brahmi Stitif Partha. Esha Brahmi Stitif Partha. Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati. Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati. Stitva Syam Antakalepi. Stitva Syam Antakalepi. Brahma Nirvana Mritchati. Brahma Nirvana Mritchati. So this is that state, Brahmi Sthiti, which is promised by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, O son of Pritha, referring to Arjuna, saying that na enam prapya vimuhyati. Once we achieve this, there is absolutely no delusion, no confusion, no illusion, or having a grip on any illusion that we might have. And having attained this, having been in this state, one automatically attains that state of Brahman. Brahma Nirvana Gacchati. Nirvana, again referring to that moksha state. So Antakalepi, very important thing, because I think Arjuna must have looked at Lord Krishna and said, oh Krishna, I think I'm too old for all this. I don't think I have the energy to work towards this Brahmic state. But Lord Krishna is saying that he's promising that even till the very last breath, we have time in this body itself. We don't have to achieve the state in the next body or further on. Even today, if I make the promise to myself that I will follow the principles in Bhagavad Gita and I reflect upon the knowledge, I have the possibility of attaining moksha even in this state. Even I have time up till this end of my dropping of this body. Antakale api. Brahma Nirvanam Mritchati. So that is the promise that is given. So that is the ultimate. This is the last shloka, which promises that state which passes, that peace that passeth all understanding, as they say. So that state of peace, that calmness, that samatvam, everything, that is what is promised in this last shloka. So this is, again, just to give you, saying that that is that absolute state where which passeth all understanding. And we will move on to now looking at the each shloka by itself, summary alone. When we started in the beginning, we said that the second chapter is broken into these very large sections. After some time, you will see another section where I have broken it down even further when in the section of 11 to 38. But the first 1 to 10 is Arjuna Vishaada, which is, Vishaada means the grief of Arjuna. In chapter 1, we already saw the grief that Arjuna goes through. So that is continuing up to the 10th shloka. Then from 11 to 38 is the highest knowledge, the Jnana Yoga part of it, Sankhya Yoga. And then after giving this knowledge, Lord Krishna reminds Arjuna that he needs to know what is Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga, which is a preparatory step to get to Sankhya Yoga. And finally, there is a description of the Sthita Prajna or a Jivan Mukti, and the Lakshanas are also given in this section of 54 to 72. So when I was going through the whole chapter this week, and I was trying to put together the slides for today's talk, I said, well, I need to give you something where you can look at how each one of these shlokas has certain concepts. When I said that chapter 2 is a very difficult, complex chapter, I wanted to say that because there are so many concepts, philosophical concepts that are introduced. So this is, again, based on just my analysis as I was going through the shlokas. Some of you may have a different analysis. And if you do, please do, let's have a discussion. It'll be great to do that. But these are the things I have written here. So the concept of Atma and Atma Lakshanas is in 12 to 20, shlokas 12 to 25 and also 29 to 30. The Sukshma Sharira, subtle body concept is discussed in 26 to 29. And then discussion of how Atma is a wonder is given in 29th shloka. And surrender principle, this is a little bit of devotion, bhakti yoga also can be thought about here. Although the aspect of bhakti is brought out more in shloka number 261. I'm not sure if I put it here, but okay, in 261, I forgot to mention that here. And then so surrender principle, this is given in shloka 7 and 8. The aspect of God's grace, about how Lord Krishna smiles, and Prahasanniva Bharata, Prahasanniva Rishikeshaha, which comes in shloka number 10. And the confusion we have for example, when Arjuna was confused, when he said about that he was thinking that he was killing his teacher, and so he's so worried about it. But in reality, Lord Krishna reminds him that he is actually killing only the gross body, the Atma is not killed. And if we consider ourselves as Atma, so that aspect is resolved in these shlokas 13 to 21 and 23 to 25. And the confusion of gross body versus subtle body, which is here this aspect of rebirth, and how the subtle body or the jiva, we say, takes on from one body to another body, is explained in these shlokas 22 and 26 to 28. And then dharma and the aspect of duty, how Lord Krishna reminds Arjuna about what his duty is and how he cannot shirk is given in the shlokas 31 to 38. Karma yoga and rewards in 40 to 51. And the aspect of Vedas is discussed in 42, 43, and 45. And then materialistic people, a shloka is there to describe who is a materialist. And then person of perfection, Sthita Prajna, 55 to 71. Ups and downs, what is ups and downs in life? Likes and dislikes. Then role of senses. the five senses, discussion about it, a lot of discussion, 58 to 65, the role of the mind, and then the quality of a man of perfection. That is, how do I know that I'm seeing somebody who is a perfect person? Or here I should change it to person of perfection. Here in these shlokas, when we come there again, I will explain. State of perfection or no confusion. The last one, Brahmi Sthiti. Then aspect of Vasana. Vasana is mentioned here in this shloka in 51. And then Krodha, anger, fear. All these are discussed in these shlokas. Okay, so now we go to each one of the shlokas. In the very first verse, we have Tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishidantamidam vakyam uvacha madhusudana. Briefly, Sanjaya is talking to Dhritarashtra and telling him about Arjuna, who is so much full of grief, which is shown here, ashrupurna akulekshanam, and who is very depressed. Vishidantam, Krishna speaks here. And then in the second to third shloka, now we see Lord Krishna is addressing that very depressed Arjuna with these two shlokas here. In this shloka, he is saying, Kutasva kashmanamidam, vishame samupastitam, anarya jushtam asvargyam, akirtikaram Arjuna. He's, literally sort of scolding Arjuna. He's saying, you are so not at all like an Aryaputra. You are, and there is no way you're going to go to Swarga. And you're very disgraceful, O Arjuna. How can you be like this? How can you allow yourself to go into this state, Arjuna? And then he's not stopping with that. He's saying here, Klaipyam masmagama partha, naitatva upapadyate, kshutram hridaya daurbalyam, tyaktva uttishta parantapa. He says, wake up, uttishta. You're having such a weak heart here, hridaya daurbalyam, your weak heart. And you are also having, which is, it is not very good at all, shutram. Then he says, Klaibyam, you're trying to be like an important person here. Don't be like that, O Partha, he says. It just doesn't befit you. And then finally, you see how Arjuna then speaks out when, he is kind of stung by Krishna's words. And he says, how can, he tries to portray as a, pavam face. And he says, oh Krishna, how can I do this to my own teachers? And he says, Katham Bhishmam Aham Sankhye. How can I fight with them? After all, they should be worshipped by flowers, not by arrows. Sankhye Dronam cha Madhusudana. Ishubi Pratiyotsyami Puja Harv Arisudana. Arisudana referring to again that Madhusudana, Krishna, who has destroyed Arihi or enemies. To such a person, how can I do this? And then he continues to, plead to Krishna, saying that Guru Nahatva Mahanubhavan Shreyo Bhoktum Vaikshima Apiha Loke Hatvarta Kamams to Guru Nihaiva Bunjiva Bhogan Rudira Pradigdan. He says, Rudira Pradigdan, if I were to just kill them, how can I even enjoy my food, which will be stained by Rudira Pradigdan, which is stained by the blood? And why should I even do it? Just for the sake of some wealth? Hatva artha kaman, for the sake of wealth and desire, should I kill my teachers? So he says it's better to beg, Vaikshimam, better to beg rather than kill them. So that is not noble at all. So this is how he tries to get out of killing or get out of the battle. And then he continues to say that, Nachaitad vidma kataranno gati gariyaha. I don't know which is right here, whether to enjoy, whether to kill them or to fight, to become victorious. Yaneva hatva tu jijiva vishamaha te vastitha pramukhe dhartarashtraha. How can I even kill them, and how can I even live by killing them? But here we see a little bit of, a little bit of ego or confusion that comes in Arjuna's mind here, because he says, there's a chance that we might even win here. So, or we might get killed. So he's again confused. All these things show the state of confusion, which is why when I said the 72nd shloka, you see how the shloka represents that absolutely no confusion state. because we start with a highly confused Arjuna. So then now we have finally, after doing this, after saying all these 2 shlokas here, Arjuna recognizes that he is completely helpless, and he finally surrenders to Sri Krishna here. So here I have just a quote from Swami Chinmayananda. Yesterday was the Mahasamadhi day for Swami Chinmayananda, and it reflects what it says. In self-surrender, when you've completely eliminated the ego, then there is neither an independent actor nor a sufferer, indicating that once our ego is eliminated, where is the confusion? Who is really getting confused here? So just a beautiful quote here, which reflects that shloka there. So now Arjuna says, Karpanya dosho pahatasva bhavaha prichhami tvam dharma sammuda chetaha yachreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme. And again, the most important line, Shishyasteham shadhi mam tvam prapannam. He is surrendering completely to Krishna, saying that please take me as your disciple. Shishyasteham shadhi, I have completely surrendered to you. And you tell me what is Shreyaha, which is the most, which is very important, very good for me. Nishchitam, tell me firmly what is good for me, because I'm totally overpowered by this karpanya, by the total pity in me. So please tell me that. And nahi prapashyami mama panudyat yachokamucho kshanamindriyanam avapya bhuma vasapatnam riddham rajyam suranamapi chadipadyam. So he says, only you can help me in this one, because my grief is so much that it's burning my senses. And but which intensely by attaining unrivaled this or dominion, I do not see any other way. Nothing else is more important right now. So 2 important verses indicating his devotion and indicating completely surrender, and also a big lesson for us that ultimately we have Ishvara as a big boss who takes care of everything, and it is through his grace that everything works in this world. So now we have Sanjaya, who is, after finishing this, as you know, Arjuna completely drops down, and Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra here, saying that Evam uktva rishikesham gudakesha parantapa na yotsya iti govindam uktva tushnim bhabuvaha. Arjuna became very quiet, tushnim, total silent, and he says he will not fight. So he speaks to Lord Krishna here, which is Rishikesha is the name here, which is given in Gudakesha for Arjuna. And Tamuvacha Rishikesha prahasanniva bharata senayor ubhayor madhye vishidantam idam vachaha. So this whole thing, so again, he tells him about how this whole teachings, which is going to start now, is being given in the midst of the 2 armies, in the midst of the battle. And to him, this so Krishna gives the teaching to Arjuna, and through Arjuna, we all are benefited by this teaching. So we have Bhagavan Shri Krishna's teaching happens here, and we see that the teaching is given from many different levels, starting with, first, Lord Krishna starts with the highest level of Atma, and then he comes down to one level where he explains more from the Sukshma Sharira point of view, where the 26 to 30, and then from the aspect of duty or dharma, and then finally at the level of our own actions in the world. So we can relate to a lot in the aspect of karma, and once we understand the karma, it is very easy to understand really what is my duty, and then so on. So this is just to give you a ladder of how the shlokas have been given here. So let's start with Shri Krishna's teaching here. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashocyanan Vashochastvam Prajnavadamscha Bhashase Gata soon agata soomscha nanushochanti panditaha. So here Lord Krishna starts off at the highest level, and he starts by saying that, hey Arjuna, you seem to be confused because on one hand you are weeping for people who are already dead and they're gone, are dead, and for those people who are not yet dead. So living can be construed as for those people who are dead and for those people who are not yet dead. Gata soon and agata soon. That is the one who is gone and one who is going. Agata soomscha. Na anushochanti panditaha. Let me remind you, Arjuna, the wise people, they do not grieve at all for this. So let me tell you all this as to who are those wise people. How can you become a wise person? And how you will see that you can get over this confusion. So that's how he starts with the teaching. So in Shloka number 12, this teaching really starts about that aspect as to why Arjuna should not grieve. Natve aham, nattu eva aham jatu na asam, natvam neme janadipaha, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayamataf param. He tells him about how that the reason why you should not grieve is at any time in the past, I not there, not you, not any of these people. And let me tell you that even in the future, we will continue to be there. So if we continue to be there, and if we were there in the past and we are here in the present, then why are you weeping? So this is again pointing to that Atma, which we will come to in the Shlokas, but here is referring to that at the core of us, we are nothing but Atma. We are not this physical body. And then he reminds him that this is again, in my concepts, I had given you these shlokas to say that how we confuse ourselves to be the body, but in reality, we are not the body. So he's trying to show here, Dehinosmin yatha dehe, kaumaram yauvanam jara, tatha dehantaraf praptihi, dhiras tatra na muhyati. So he again tells him that it's only the physical body that actually goes through childhood, youth, middle age, old age, and everything. The Atma doesn't change at all. And this, a wise person knows it, and therefore the wise person does not grieve. Whereas you are grieving. So I want to remind you that if you want to be a wise person, if you want to get over your confusion, remember that it's only the physical body that goes through. The Atma never dies. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha agama payino nityaha tam stitikshasva bharata. So he reminds Arjuna that we have to develop a certain level of titiksha or endurance, because if we don't, then constantly I will be thinking I'm this body, because it's only the body that goes through heat and pleasure and pain and everything. And all this have agama payino nityaha. They have a beginning, they have an end, and they are very temporary. Whereas Atma is permanent. Atma does not have a beginning. Atma does not have an end. So why are you worried about it? You just develop some titiksha and get over that aspect. And then he continues on to tell him, Yam hina vyathayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. So he tells it's only that person who can firmly face that pain and pleasure, who can really understand that that person is not the body. Only that person is capable of achieving moksha. Only that person is capable of achieving nirvana. Only that person is capable of going close to God. So this is what he tries to tell him in this shloka here. Then this Shloka 16, which is, I've said this before, can be complex to understand. Very important Shloka in second chapter. This is the most important concept, which is reminded here, which is Nasato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubhayorapi drishtontaha tvanayos tattva darshibihi. Again, it's only the wise people who understand what is real and what is unreal. For people like us who are in this world, everything seems very real. But at the level of where a jnani has reached, the person will recognize that what we are seeing here is so temporary, is really not the absolute reality. So, and that person who has reached that state can distinguish what is real versus unreal. They have the capacity to go there, and they are the ones who are the people who have attained moksha. So, avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinasham abhyasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Again and again, Lord Krishna is reminding Arjuna that the way we look at ourselves. So we look at ourselves as being destroyed. Here he's reminding him that Atma is never destroyed. Know that to be indestructible, by which everything, this whole Jagat, yena sarvamidam tatam, which is pervaded, and this destruction of the imperishable is not possible by anyone. So again, trying to tell him that you think you're destroying your gurus and all the people, but nobody can actually destroy that Atma, which is there in everyone. And so that is what he's saying. It's not possible by anyone at all. So don't worry about it. Next, in Shloka 18, he says further on that the bodies have an end, but that Atma, it's this one, it does not, it is eternal. And it is again indestructible, and it is incomprehensible. One cannot even fathom what it is. Antavanta ime dehaha. All these deha, which is bodies, they have this end. Nityas yukta okta sharirinaha. But that self which is there in all these bodies is nityam. It is eternal. And it is anashinaha. Anashinaha means indestructible. Aprameyasya, which is not possible to fathom it. And therefore, hey Arjuna, tasmad yutyasva bharata. You fight. You have to fight, because don't worry about this. So he's giving him the philosophy behind why he should fight. And then he continues to say that ya enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau na vijanitaha nayam hantina hanyate. Again, if you remember, this is all from Kathopanishad, and he tells him that only those person who takes himself to be the slayer and he who thinks his self is slain, both these know not, for he slays not nor he slain. That is to say that Atma, if I consider myself to be the Atma, then I'm not the one who is killing somebody. I'm not the one who's getting killed. So that's the thing. And then he says, na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita van bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranaha na hanyate hanyamane sharire. That is, he's now reminding him that that self is neither born, nor does it die at all. It is unborn. It is always there, always existing, eternal. It is changeless, and it is ancient, Puranaha, indicating not that it is old, but indicating that it is ever there. So the self cannot be killed. It's only the physical bodies that goes through one body after another, gets killed. And then in Shloka 21, he reminds him that again, that self is unborn, inexhaustible. So if that is the case, he's again trying to remind Arjuna, saying that, then how can you think you're the one who is killing anybody? Veda means know that it is avinashi, and it is again nityam. Ya enam ajam unborn, avyayam, which is ever there, again inexhaustible, as it says here, deathless. So katham sa purusha. So how can you think that you're killing, right? So that is the thing. So now he's reminding him that, vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani ghrannati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. So he's trying to show that how the physical body that we have right now is nothing like our winter jackets or any of these jackets. These jackets are just to be thrown off or worn out or given up when the time comes. And so it's human bodies, they're worn out. And later, this Sukshma Sharira or the subtle body, it takes up another body to fulfill its further goals. And nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, nachainam kledayantyapaha, na shoshayati marutaha. Again, reminding that Atma, which is indestructible, cannot be destroyed by anything. And here he's given all the 5 elements, the wind, fire, water, and earth, or none of them can actually destroy it. And then he goes on to say that this self is beyond the gross body. Achedyoyam dahyoyam akledyo shoshya evacha nitya sarvagata sthanuhu achaloyam sanatanaha. Again, saying that it cannot be burnt, it cannot be wetted. It's a continuation of the previous shloka to show that it cannot be done by any of those processes by the 5 elements. And therefore, he says, you should not grieve at all. Avyaktam, it is unmanifest, unthinkable, unchangeable. So all this he's giving as the lakshanas of the Atma. And then he's trying to give him some more points to ponder. He says, but you know what? Even if you think that the self is constantly born, even then you don't have to grieve. So here he's talking about how it is the subtle body or the Sukshma Sharira, which is the one which takes up one body after another. So even in that case, let's forget that you're even the Atma. Let's say that you are the Sukshma Sharira. Okay, even if you're Sukshma Sharira, you don't have to worry about it because the Sukshma Sharira has its own journey, so it will continue on. So that is what is given here. And then he gives here that, again, reminding that the physical body, jatasya hi dhruvo mrittihu, dhruvam janma mritasya cha. So if the physical body, there is birth and death. But for the subtle body, there is no birth and death until the subtle body realizes. So too, you should not have to worry at all. And then he talks about how the subtle bodies are like these bubbles in the ocean. So just like in the ocean, you have, so just like you have these in the ocean bubbles which get manifest, which with the waves, for example, the wave rises and the wave then drops into the ocean. So too, all these subtle bodies, they first appear to be manifest, or they take up a body and they appear to be there. And then later on they die and then they come back again. So that's the idea which is given here from the subtle body. And then ultimately he says that this whole philosophy is such a wonderful thing. It's a wonder because some people can see it and say, wow, I never realized that this is who I am. Some people, can even speak of it as this. Some people are, can understand it. But yet, Lord Krishna is reminding Arjuna that this philosophy is so subtle that in spite of knowing all this, it is not that easy to really grasp this truth. None understands Vedanacha eva kaschitin. Not many people can really understand this aspect. And that's the wonder of it all. So then he says after that, he continues to say that dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. So that it is that same Atma which is there in everybody. So don't feel bad, Arjuna, that you're killing anybody. You have no reason to grieve because it's that same Atma who's in everyone. And now he comes to explain to him from the aspect of dharma. So he now tells him that, okay, if you now look at your duty, you are a Kshatriya, you have to fight this war. So he says it's your swadharma. Swadharmam api chavekshya navikampitum arhasi dharmyadi yuddha shreyon anyat kshatriyasya na vidyate anyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. So all these arguments that Lord Krishna has been giving to Arjuna, he started with the highest level, saying that since you are Atma, you don't have to worry about killing anyone. Then he says, since you are the subtle body, you're moving from one body to another. If the physical body dies, also you don't have to worry. So therefore you should fight. Now he's trying to bring him a little more closer to understanding what is his real duty. After all, he's being trained to be a warrior. He has all the skills. So why should he not fight for it? So that's what he's trying to remind him his duty. And then he tells him that these kind of things comes, they don't necessarily, you go seeking for it, it comes to you. So why would you say no to something like this? So that's why he's saying this opportunity has come to you, and it is an opportunity by which if you fulfill this, you have the opportunity to go to heaven. So either ways, you're not going to be a loser. It's a win-win situation. And then he tells him, Atachetvam imam dharmim sangramam na karishyasi tata swadam kirtim cha hitva papam avapsyasi. He says then, you have to do it, otherwise you will incur sin, because by not doing it, it's not good. And then he reminds him also that if he doesn't do it, people are going to make fun of him. So Shlokas 34, 35 is all telling him about how he has to do it. Otherwise, he's going to face a lot of grief from others. So all this, and then he reminds him again, he will obtain heaven. Otherwise, he will still continue to enjoy fame on the earth. And then he tells him about how to fight. And he says, when you're fighting, make sure that you keep your balance in mind. Don't worry about the gain or loss or victory or this one. Just fight for the sake of the battle. So this is the beginning of Karma Yoga. And here he says about, just listen to what I'm going to tell you about this Karma Yoga. It starts over here. And he tells even a little bit of this one will actually help you with, that's what in the Shloka he's saying here. And then he tells him by doing this Karma Yoga, it'll make you single pointed. It'll make you focus. It'll help you develop focus. Maybe this is a good thing for us to know, because in the midst of all distractions, if I know what is my duty and I do it, it'll help me develop my focus. So that's the thing here, he says. And then he says, there are people who might try to say that, there is nothing in the Vedas, but Vedas actually give you this knowledge of, how to be focused. And then he tells here that in the Vedas, it is said of these two paths. One is if you have a lot of desires, it tells you how to fulfill that desires. That's given here. And this is just again a quote from Swami Chimananda to say that how the integrated mind is the only thing which gives excellent performance, and that can be achieved by Karma Yoga. And then he goes on to say, this is the shloka for the materialist kind of person who's always looking at pleasure. Such a person can never, ever be able to reach that state of samabuddhi. And so here again, he talks about what are the Vedas. The Vedas have the three gunas, and it gives you a prescription on, depending upon what each one of our quality is, there is a path that can be used towards moving higher. And then this is this shloka gives you an example of that of a great person for whom even the Vedas is not going to show him anything, because the person is already full of happiness, is desire free. For such a person, Vedas is of no use. And so finally we come to this shloka of karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalahetur bhuhu ma te sangostva karmani. The four things which are needed to be kept in account for doing our work is to only we need to work we need to not work just because in what is in it for me. And he also says, let not the fruit of action be a motive, and nor should we be attached to inaction. And then again, this talking about how to maintain the steady mind and to work without any attachment for the results. So samatvam yoga uchyate, that's a beautiful phrase here in the shloka. And then the next one is talking about, again, the materialist kind of people who are always looking for what is in it for me. So that's what this shloka is talking about. And then he talks about the glory of karma yoga, which is yoga karma sukaushalam. That is the thing about how karma yoga teaches one aspect on how to be focused. And when I'm focused without looking for what is in it for me, then I become really efficient in whatever I do. And that is yoga karma sukaushalam, which is mentioned in this here. And then finally, he says about karmajam buddhi yukta phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandhar. When I perform my work in this way, then I will not be subject to that birth and death, the constant cycle of birth and death, which tells me that I still have more desires. So how to get rid of desires? Karma yoga is the best way to do it. And then these two shlokas are just telling us how the karma yoga helps me to improve my intellect. And all the scriptures basically just talk about this thing. And then after giving this knowledge of karma yoga, so we did the Sankhya yoga, we did the karma yoga, and now we have Lord Krishna now describes Arjuna wants to really know, he wants to know who is that kind of person who really is in that steady, calm, collected state. So tell me more about the person. So he asks these 4 questions. Sithadi kim prabhasheta, kim asita, and how does he walk, brajeta kim, and how is this person, how does he stay in that state of samadhi? So here we have the shloka where Lord Krishna tells Arjuna about that person who has given up all his desires and who is totally content, atmanyeva atmana tushtaha. That is the lakshana of this person. And such a person is, doesn't go through the ups and downs and is also free from anger, fear, and anger, fear, and attachment. And such a person is also can handle, is free of likes and dislikes. So anything that comes to the person is able to take it. And here we have this example of a tortoise. A person of wisdom is compared to a tortoise here. And then such a person is able to not allow himself or herself being attracted to the outside. In fact, that person doesn't even have a taste for any of these sense objects because that person has actually experienced that supreme divine reality. And this is the shloka for Bhakti Yoga, which I said, Mat Paraha. I'm sorry, the previous, it's coming up. Next 61, it will come up there. So then the next almost 10 shlokas is all this aspect about our senses, how our senses pulls us down. So here he's trying to show about our senses are so powerful and they need to be constantly kept in control that even a wise person, not wise, not a Mahatma, that is not what he's talking about, or a wise person who is in this path and who's trying to move ahead, even that person can actually lose the senses here. So this is the shloka, which is developing the devotion for God, which will allow the senses to be under control. And then 62 and 63, we saw the ladder of fall, dhyayatu vishayan pumsaha. Then the next thing, and then we show the ladder of rise, which is raga, dvesha, how to be. The ladder of rise can happen only when I do not have any likes and dislikes. And then he talks about the tranquil person. How do you achieve that tranquility? The tranquility is again achieved when I'm in control of my likes and dislikes. And then here we have in 68 about how the person has completely the senses under control. And then this is another kind of a complex shloka we saw about the Sthita Prajna, for whom is able to, is in that state of knowledge, which is like a night for people who are not in this path, or who is striving towards, I guess, or who is, the whole aspect of realization is like night for normal person. But for a Sthita Prajna, this world of objects is like a night, or it's like a dream world. We saw this. And then 70 is about the talk of a person of Sthita Prajna as compared to an ocean. Just as in ocean, all the waters come in, so too in a person of wisdom, any amount of desires can go into that person, but the person is not affected at all. And then finally, such a person is has no attachment to anything, so no minus, no I-ness, and is also free of desires. Such a person is in that state of supreme peace, and that supreme peace is this Brahmic state. So we saw the whole thing. Now we can go and chant everything. We have only 10 minutes, I think. We will try to do it. अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः संजय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः। श्रीभगवान् उवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन क्लैभ्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वयुपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं संख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजाहार्वरिसूदन गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्ष्यमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुतिरप्रतिक्तान् न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयः यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः ते वस्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्या निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नं न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्यात् यच्छोकमुच्छोक्षणमिन्द्रियाणाम् अवाप्य भूमा वसपत्नमृद्धं राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यं। संजय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तप न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः। तमुवाच ऋषिकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः। श्रीभगवान् उवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासून गतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पंडिताः न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परं देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरः प्राप्तिः धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्ण सुख दुःखदाः Agama payino nityaha tam sitikshasva bharata yam hina vyathayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate nasato vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate sataha ubhayorapi drishtontaha tvanayostattvadarshibhihi avinashitu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinashamapyayasyasya na kaschit kartumarhati antavanta ime dehaha nityasyokta sharirinaha anashino prameyasya tasmadyudhyasva bharata ya enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tau na vijanitaha nayam hanti na hanyate na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yam puranaha na hanyate hanyamane sharire veda vinashinam nityam ya enam ajam avyayam katham sapurushav partha kham gatayati hantikam vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grannati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi nainam chintanti shastrani nainam dahati pavakaha na chainam kledayantyapah na shoshayati marutaha अच्छेद्यो यमदाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्यो शोष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतस्थाणुः अचलोऽयं सनातनः अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयम् अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येते न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तनिधनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित् देहि नित्यमवध्योऽयं देहे सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि स्वधर्ममपि चावेक्ष्य न विकम्पितुमर्हसि धर्म्यादियुद्धात् श्रेयोऽन्यत् क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतं सुखिनः क्षत्रियाः पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम् अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यं संग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययां सम्भावितस्य चाकीर्तिः मरणादतिरिच्यते भयाद्रणातु परतं मंस्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतः भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम् अवाच्य वादां च बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यं ततो दुःखतरं नु किं हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीं तस्मादुत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः सुखदुःखे समे कृत्वा लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ ततो युद्धाय युज्यस्व नैवं पापमवाप्स्यसि एषा ते विहिता सांख्ये बुद्धिर्योगे त्विमां शृणु बुद्ध्या युक्तो यया पार्थ कर्म बंधं प्रहास्यसि नेहाभिक्रमणाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात् व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखाह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनां यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्य विपश्चितः वेदवादरताः पार्थ नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः कामात्मानः स्वर्गपराः जन्म कर्म फलप्रदां क्रिया विशेष बहुलां भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां तयापहृतचेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते त्रैगुण्यविषया वेदाः निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थः निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान् यावानर्थ उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानतः कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्म फलहेतुर्भूः मा ते सङ्गोऽस्वकर्मणि योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्य सिद्ध्यो समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणाः फलहेतवः बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृत दुष्कृते तस्मात् योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलं कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्ध विनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयं यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यति निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिः तथा योगमवाप्स्यसि। अर्जुन उवाच स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्तस्य केशव स्थितधि किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किं श्रीभगवान् उवाच प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते यः सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहः तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभं नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता यदा संहरते चायं कूर्मोऽङ्गानीव सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्य देहिनः रसवर्जं रसोऽप्यस्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते यततो ह्यपि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परः पशेहि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति रागद्वेषविमुक्तैस्तु विषयान् इन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः आपूर्यमाणमचलः प्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी विहाय कामान्यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थित्वा स्याम् अन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति. Okay, we finished the last one. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyo Dhyayaha. So this completes the second chapter. This chapter talked about Sankhya Yoga, which is mentioned here, and it is in Dvitiyo Dhyayaha. So this is the only two things that you will see is different. And we have talked about the meaning of the shloka before, so I won't go into it. So with this, I will complete. And sorry, it became a little longer, but I offer my gratitude to all my teachers who have taught this, and also to Balaji Temple for giving us this opportunity to study the Bhagavad Gita. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you, Sunitha.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Sunitha ji, it was very, very nice.
Thank you, Sunitha ji.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's very beautiful, Sunitha ji.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very nice.
Thank you. It was excellent.
It was very nice.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for.
Hari Om, thank you. It was wonderful. The explanation was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Suvarna. Thank you. Thank you, Minu, Avinash, Geeta.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.